Hey everyone, I am Tam.
And I'm Lucy.
And it is my pleasure. I'm very excited about this interview. I am joined by the crew from Lies of P team, a game that I love. I am obsessed with Souls-likes, let's call them, and I'm very picky about them as well. I think Lies of P is the only one I recommend outside of From Software's games. So you did it. You were pleased, the most annoying From Software fan. Good job. How was the experience for you guys? You know, like once you put it out there, it must have been nerve-wracking to know that there's a very, very kind of elite community of people who are going to pick it apart. And for the most part, I've seen everyone loves it. What was that like?
We received beyond our imagination such wonderful reception from communities around the world, and that got us to be much more humble in many ways because the expectation has risen and we have to respond to it properly. So.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I was going to say, like, one of the interesting things about these kind of games is gameplay is really hard to get right. Even harder is story, and that's something that people really latched onto, myself included. I watched Lies of P lore videos still every day. What was the process of making that and actually executing it and seeing it land with people, especially given the property you're working with or the character you're working with?
It was a collaborative process overall. We had long range of campaign from announcement to release, and throughout the entire process, well before we launched the game, we got lots of feedback from many fans around the world, and which was wonderful for us. And with all these feedback from outside, we had to have lots of extensive discussions internally from development and team all together, and we had to really focus on really taking that feedback and turn that into a well-crafted story. So overall, just one way to describe it is it was a huge collaborative process for us.
Obviously a huge thing in the Souls community are challenge runs, speed runs, and Lies of P has developed quite a great speedrunning community. Do you watch that kind of stuff? Do you kind of pick apart like, oh, we should have fixed that? Or maybe you're looking at ways to incorporate challenge runs and speed runs into the DLC and future games?
First of all, we have so much fun watching them. Of course, we're watching them everywhere, and we have a lot of fun, but also we're grateful. It's a realization that hit us where, okay, we got to the point where these phenomenal communities are using our game as a material to do speed runs, and it's fantastic. Now, when we see that, sometimes they're playing the game in a way that it's really not intended when we design the game. However, we think that's sort of the overall entertainment as a whole. And we find that as a wonderful new discovery for us. And yeah, we are obviously taking that into consideration in our development.
Lucy just mentioned the new content there, so I think I would love to know what is Overture. I'd love to hear you talk about it because I've seen it, I've watched the community try and figure out what it is and what's going on there. So now I'm interested in how you would describe the new content and how you would tease it.
In short, Lies of P Overture is the complete experience of Lies of P. And that's the work that we truly believe was the collaborative piece of work with the help of the community.
Are you talking about in terms of the timeline? Are you talking in terms of gameplay, story? What do you mean by complete?
Throughout this entire experience of development, as we mentioned earlier on, we received just incredible amount of feedback. So 3 areas of development that we were really focusing on was music, combat, and storyline. And in all areas, with all the feedback from the community around the world, we got to push ourselves to expand in all 3 key areas to really create a piece where we wanted it to be when we completed the base game. There's far more for us to do because we got so much feedback altogether, but we had to prioritize releasing the base game. The expansion is the opportunity for us to really complete that development. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned earlier, you paid attention to the communities and this is the complete experience. So a lot of people are going to be playing this for the first time, having seen that the original is great. What are you doing to the original game that might reflect that complete experience? Are there any changes that you're bringing to it?
Overall, when we think about the development of 2 components, the base game and the expansion, we really didn't think of it as 2 separate entities. They were developed in a full combination. So we had many areas for us to improve upon. And it's really hard for us to share the details of how everything comes together because it is the holistic content that was supposed to be the sort of like the complete experience of Lies of P as a whole. It would be wonderful for the fans to play the base game in anticipation of the expansion so that you can, when the expansion comes out, you can understand how everything comes together.
Now you mentioned music earlier, that being a key part of Lies of P, and the word overture obviously evokes many emotions, especially in music. What can we be expecting from the soundtrack, because it's such a wonderful part of Lies of P?
Yeah, music is a very important piece of Lies of P. And the music is there to invoke certain emotion as well as memory when you play through the game. So it was part of the overall storytelling experience of Lies of P. So we carefully concocted that together. So yeah, there will be musics that we develop. There will be sort of expanding and sort of invoking feelings that we wanted you to experience when you play the game.
I'm going to ask a very nitty-gritty detail about gameplay that hopefully you can answer. Help me understand. Obviously, you have the new content now, which presumably means new weapons and perhaps abilities and that kind of stuff, new items. How does that interact with the original game? Like, can you take that stuff back into the original game, the base game? And if so, how did you approach rebalancing, knowing that there's, you know, new things happening? Did you even do that? Or is there like a block where you can't take that stuff back because it wouldn't work?
In short, yes, you can use the weapons and such. But to elaborate further, as we mentioned earlier on, the expansion and the base game together as a whole is one seamless content. And of course, all the weapons and tactics and skill sets that you actually develop, you'll definitely be able to apply that throughout the entire game. The philosophy behind this iteration and expansion was to really push the boundaries of experiences, of course, combat further. So all the things that you have developed, got used to and mastered, you should be able to use that. And yet you'll be able to actually expand that further to deal with different challenges that you'll be unleashing in the game.
That means new speed runs, new challenge runs for us.
Yeah, I was going to say
Very exciting.
TDQ.
I have one final question that I have to ask for the sake of the community. Spoilers for Lies of P. The ending has a certain character that hints at a future kind of path for you. Overture, is that completely separate from that as being like a part of the original? Or is there more about Dorothy in the DLC as well?
Certainly, this time in Overture, the character that we showed off is not going to be there in Overture because we wanted Overture to be, again, the complete experience of Lies of P. And for that, we really reflected and put a lot of effort into finalizing our story as a craft. Leia, the legendary stalker, we have put and hinted many different sort of pieces of story throughout the game in the base game. And all of that hints are coming together in our storytelling. And she's going to be the pivotal character that would lead you to experience the entire story as a whole, how it was supposed to be. So we would love the fans to really focus on Leia this time to experience the story of Lies of P. Yeah.
Well, I hope you take this as a compliment because it's my favorite game of all time, Bloodborne. It reminds me a lot of the old Hunters and Lady Maria, who's a very similar character that teased, and once you play that, you get the whole experience. So our expectations are pretty high now, so hopefully you meet them.
I love that character. I'm in love with her. But for Lies of P, Leia is going to be a very important character. It's a lady of our own. And we believe that she's going to demonstrate our own narrative and story that we really put a lot of effort to complete.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us and telling us about Lies of P Overture. We're very excited to play it. Thank you for watching. We'll be back soon with more from GDC and hopefully Lies of P.